A lot of exciting things going on at Sunbank. Learn about community banking from one who knows it inside and out. Coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at the Myrtle Beach Herald. We're focused on community banking, and we're visiting with Tommy Bouchette, the president and CEO of Sunbank. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning, Greg. How are you?
Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
It's so exciting to think last time, about a year and a half ago, excuse me, 2 times back, we were at the Myrtle Beach Herald's office on Myrtle Square Mall.
That's correct.
Then exactly a year ago in August, we were down at Brook Green Gardens, a little more in your neck of the woods between your 2 main offices.
In the Georgetown
there
office.
in the Murrells Inland and in Georgetown. And of course, not too long back, we were down in Georgetown and had Mayor Linwood Wilson,
That's
who
correct.
was with us, and very exciting, who I guess was your city executive down there in
That is
Georgetown.
correct.
Is
Yeah.
he still with the bank?
He's retired. Matter of fact, he just retired a few weeks ago.
You're kidding.
Yeah.
Please send him our best.
We certainly will.
A lot going on in community banking, a lot going on the South Strand, a lot going on with Sunbank right now.
It sure is. It's a very vibrant community, and anytime you have those kind of dynamics at work, things are going to happen. So we're excited.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of those things that are happening. I know we want to get into you, and for viewers who may not have seen you when you were with us last year or the year before, we'll catch up on that. But y'all have recently, I think as of 2 weeks ago, made a big announcement.
Well, actually, we made it public last Friday, regarding the merger. I'm assuming.
Right.
Yes. We signed a definitive agreement to merge Sunbank, or Sunbank Shares, which is our holding company, with South Carolina Bank and Trust Financial Corporation. And the 2 holding companies will merge. Sunbank will continue to operate as a separate subsidiary of South Carolina Bank and Trust in Columbia.
Now, the South Carolina Bank and Trust, have they been around a long time, Tommy?
Actually, Greg, they've been around about 60 years, but the reason a lot of folks are not familiar with them, up until about 2 years ago, they operated as Orangeburg First National, and that was in Orangeburg, South Carolina. Their roots are primarily in the low country of South Carolina. They started off in Orangeburg, and they have a real rich history in small towns, so they understand community banking very well.
How did they find out about this opportunity, or how did the opportunity arise?
Well, in South Carolina, the banking industry is still a relatively close-knit community. People know people, and we being Sunbank and our board, we had no desire, no real plans of trying to merge or sell our bank in any way whatsoever. Actually, we've been approached numerous times over the last year or 2.
Sure.
But these folks approached us last December, actually, and we talked about it and decided the timing just wasn't right. We resumed those talks back about a month and a half ago. Sat down, did a real thorough analysis to what it would mean to our shareholders. And, one of our pledges when we started Sunbank this November, will be 5 years ago, was that we would take care of customers and shareholders, and that would be our mission regardless of what else we had to do. But we brought in some third-party financial advisors that's very skilled in mergers and acquisitions and doing pro formas over long periods of time, and determined that this was just absolutely the best opportunity, 1, for shareholders and to grow their investment, but 2, it gives us a lot of abilities that we don't have today to be able to take better care of our customers, offer more products, particularly as it relates to lending. Greg, as you may know, in this market, $1 million isn't what it used to be. And we certainly want to be a player in the Myrtle Beach market. We're getting ready to open an office. And with the cost of real estate, it's not unusual to have a $5 million loan request. We can do around $20 million once we merge to 1 customer. So that's a big driver for us.
The merger was announced, you said, on Friday the 22nd, I think, 23rd of July.
That's correct.
The opportunity to think about this quick, there's an approach. I mean, this takes quite a while to actually finalize.
That's correct. The steps are, of course, you do your due diligence. They did a very exhaustive due diligence on us. We have done the same on them, but with the size that they are and the size we are, it's pretty easy to see who has to do the most work. But having said that, after we went through all those processes, did our homework, did our research, we signed a definitive agreement, and that document is about 60 pages deep. Will lay out all the ground rules for what we have to do in order to consummate the merger. We anticipate it being finalized late November.
Great. So right at your 5-year anniversary,
Right.
Tommy.
Absolutely.
And of course, the excitement for so many of the folks that have grown up and really gotten thrilled over the last 5 years with the Sunbank name are going to be hearing that name for a good while to come.
That's correct. Part of our agreement is that we'll continue to operate as a separate bank with our own board. One of their officers, their chief operating officers, will join our board, and our chairman, Dalton Floyd, will join their board.
Great.
But other than that, it should be business as usual.
Well, of course, recently I think we saw that Sunbank had opened a loan origination office in Myrtle Beach.
That's
and y'all had begun to
We'd already
move
started,
a little
yeah.
bit away from the roots of the South Strand there in Murrells Inlet, the big facility that folks know, and down in Georgetown.
Well, you know, Myrtle Beach just overlaps into the South Strand, and it only makes sense to be in both markets at the same time.
You know, for our viewers in the PD who've seen First Reliance begin to move down to the beach, and an upstart group down there in the Mount Pleasant area, Tidelands Bank, just opened a new office there in Myrtle Beach. It's
Loan production.
a loan origination office or production office. Why are so many folks coming to I mean, what is it about Myrtle Beach that makes that happen, Tommy?
Well, you know, right now, Myrtle Beach is the 13th largest MSA in the nation.
No.
Well, let me back that up. They're the 13th largest in terms of growth, fastest growing MSA. So that attracts a lot of attention. And, you know, anybody who spends any time in this area can tell pretty quick that, you know, the growth is still coming. There's about $4.5 billion in deposits as of last June. The FDIC captures that data June 30th of each year.
Right.
So as of June 30th last year, between Georgetown County and Horry County, there was about $4.5 billion.
Wow.
That's a big pie.
Yeah.
So the natural tendency is to believe that you can capture just a very small amount of that. And when a pie is that big, even a small slice is significant.
That is tremendous, Tommy. I don't think folks understand the significance of that. $4.5 billion of deposits by June of 2004.
That's right.
June 30th of 2004.
Right. Between Georgetown and Horry.
Between Horry and Georgetown County. That is fascinating.
And you know, the thing is, with Georgetown County, it only represents about 700 million of that $4.5 billion.
Right.
However, between Georgetown, you got a $3.9 billion market in Horry County, but you've got a $4 billion, a little over $4 billion in Charleston County. So sooner or later, you know, if you're in Georgetown County, you're going to feel the effects of Charleston County and also Horry.
Has Charleston County, I guess those folks are beginning to think about this area as well, seeing that. Yeah. And of course, when we think about it, so often, there's still room for community banks in this area.
I think there always will be. There's always going to be room for the large regionals and large national banks as well, but you know, with technology the way it is, you can outsource so much of your stuff that years ago you couldn't. And as a result of that, there's always going to be small community banks, in my opinion.
Tommy, we saw the announcement of the definitive merger. The president and CEO of South Carolina Bank and Trust, I think it's Robert Hill, had said, you know, a great merger of two community banks. And of course, them with $1.7 billion or so in assets there, you begin to think, is this still a community bank? Of course, we hear the folks here, Myrtle Beach-based bank, 50-year-old bank with more than $1 billion in assets, still really pumping up, Coastal Federal pumping up the community bank name.
That's correct.
I guess you can get pretty dang large and still be considered a community bank.
Well, you really can, and particularly what SCB&T has done so well is they have a regional concept. Some of the larger banks, when you get to a certain point where you're in multiple states, you really have to have your branches pretty much walking the same line, looking the same way. But with SCB&T, they've been able to have regions throughout the state where they have a regional president. And those fellows make decisions. I mean, everything is handled by that regional president, just like a small bank would be. So that concept works very well for them.
Tommy, your current bio is not sitting in front of me, but something that came out recently, there was a press release that came out within the last month showing that you had joined a group of like community bank shares or something, maybe based out of Washington. What was that about?
Virginia, actually.
Virginia.
CBS, which is Community Securities, Community Banks Securities. It's a consortium of about, at this point, 10 banks. And what we're doing, we have partnered with a securities broker-dealer to be able to offer annuities, life insurance products, any type of investment products to our customers through that broker-dealer. So we basically have our own broker-dealer that we share, the 10 to 12 banks share together.
So that opens some new opportunities for Sunbank, definitely.
Absolutely. Yep.
On the South Strand and throughout.
You know, there's a lot of wealth in this area, and a lot of folks, you know, need someone to help them manage their assets. And we think that's just another product that we need to offer our customer base.
Real quick about yourself, Tommy, for folks who may not have seen you last year or the year before, are you originally from the area?
Oh, yeah. Andrews, South Carolina.
Andrews. That's in Williamsburg County?
Well, Andrews is actually in Georgetown, but I lived outside Andrews in the country, a very small farm in Williamsburg County.
It was.
Yeah. And so Andrews and Georgetown was my hometown, and I've been working in this area pretty much all my adult life. So.
We had a guest yesterday on the show, Randy Altman, who I believe had been with Williamsburg
First National
for a bank there in Williamsburg County before a couple years ago leaving to join the Florence office as the city exec there for Anderson Brothers Bank.
That's correct.
Was in promoting the Building Bridges program with the Greater Florence Chamber of Commerce. It was fascinating hearing him talk about both banking in Williamsburg County for quite a few years, and there's still some growth. I mean, when you talk about South Carolina Bank and Trust having been the Bank of Orangeburg for 58 years, I mean, in single counties, geographically large counties that may not have huge populations, there's still quite a bit of opportunity there for a community bank.
Sure. You know, in King Street, which is the county seat, you know, they have 3 hometown community banks. Now, if I was looking to start a new one, I certainly wouldn't go to King Street. but you know, in small communities, the smaller community, the more they like the hometown bank, and rightfully so.
Tom, do you still have family down in Andrews?
Sure. Yeah, sure do.
You get over there much to visit?
Not as much as I used to. I still own a few acres over there, and I get over occasionally. But I tell you, the last 5 years, starting the bank and trying to keep it going is just pretty much consumed about all my time.
Oh yeah, Tommy, last year when we were down at Brook Green Gardens, you talked about keeping bankers' hours, which sounded like they were a little different than most folks' hours. Bankers' hours means?
Well, yeah, well, you have bankers' hours and you have banking hours, and I think most bankers nowadays will tell you they're not the same thing. You know, you may open the bank up at 8:30 and you may close it at 5, but there's a lot of hours ahead of 8 and a lot after 5 in order to do what you have to do to service your customers. You know, just like every other industry, banking has become so competitive. And, you know, if you want to get market share and if you want to take care of your customers, you know, you got to be willing to put in the effort, and that takes time.
Oh, yeah. I think I saw early on, and that may still be the case, that you all had your home numbers on cards.
Sure, still do.
Giving out, making that effort to make sure you're available.
Yeah, all of our bankers have their home number and cell number on the telephone.
That's tremendous, Tommy. And that's worked well. I mean, you know, that's, of course, you get some creepy calls at funny hours, but it probably rarely happens.
Very rarely. I mean, we deal with good people. I mean, you know, our customer base are the kind of folks you want to do business with, and, you know, if they have a problem, you know, Saturday afternoon when they're out of town and they need their banker, I want to be able to reach us. So, so we seldom have an issue where somebody calls us that, you know, really shouldn't.
I want to talk more about this great opportunity of the merger between Sun Bank and South Carolina Bank and Trust, but there were a couple of key things that you shared with us in December of '03 when we were together talking about. One was buying and selling of money that banks get in that process, which is a real interesting concept to a lot of folks. They try to think, how does a bank operate? How does it make money? But then also you talk about the 5 C's of banking. Do you remember, can you share with viewers a little bit about that so that folks will have a better understanding of banking?
Well, you know, basically the 5 C's is how you would underwrite a loan request. But character, first C, is just, if you can't get past the character issue, a good banker doesn't care about anything else. If he thinks he's dealing with someone that is unethical or will do something illegal, he just doesn't, you know, do business with those folks. But once you get past the character, of course, you have capital, which is the financial condition of that borrower. Does he have the wherewithal to be able to withstand a little bit of adversity and pay that loan back? You also have his repayment capacity. Capacity is how much debt service can I handle. You know, sometimes people believe they can afford more debt than what the numbers say they can, and you have to, you know, work through that. The condition of that borrower. You know, is it a loan that you want to make? Is it the right kind of loan? Is it the right kind of industry? And then finally, and this is what surprises a lot of people, the biggest C after character is collateral, is what a lot of people will think. But as you underwrite a credit or a loan request, typically that's your last thing you look at.
Really?
And the reason for that is most banks would not ever admit anyway that they're an asset-based lender. In other words, we never want to make a loan on someone's house just because they have a lot of equity into it. If they don't have the ability to repay it, then we certainly don't want to you know, put them in a position where one day we have to foreclose. You know, banks are not in the, you know, car business or the real estate business, so they don't want those assets on their books, and nobody wants to get involved in a repossession or a foreclosure.
I'm sure. Golly, trying to take those on and figuring out what you do with them.
That's right.
Particularly oftentimes now, folks will get where they're in a real negative position with a car, where they've potentially borrowed more than the car's worth now.
And with the way home prices have accelerated, you can start to see that happening pretty quick if if the real estate market ever cools off a little bit, you know, particularly now with mortgages that's available where interest only for 5 years and these kind of specialty products, it very easily get upside down even on your house.
I saw, Tommy, just yesterday reading something from Silicon Valley Bank, a West Coast bank, that more than $1 trillion in loans will be due in 2007. So many of these, as you say, on these interest-only loans, that's more than $1 trillion, a real potential fear that's going to hit the market within a couple of years. How are you all beginning to brace for that?
Well, in our case, and in most smaller banks, that's really not an issue. Most of those mortgages are sold on the secondary market. And, you know, ideally they're underwritten to people that can afford to have a change in their debt service whenever those loans convert from interest only to principal and interest. However, that won't be the case. I mean, there'll be some people that this will hit hard whenever that happens. So we don't recommend those kind. We don't do them. We don't recommend them. We do have some commercial type loan products where if you're an investor and you're accredited to the point where you can withstand that adversity, then fine, that's different. But for the average homeowner, we just recommend that they go with a traditional principal and interest payment.
Right, sure.
So they don't get themselves caught upside down.
Oh, yeah. And so oftentimes now folks are really forcing themselves to get into 15-year or 12 or 18-year things to make sure and really force themselves to stay focused and get it done.
And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But what I'm referring to primarily is, you know, you have a 3 or 5 year interest-only product.
Oh, yeah.
And then at the end of that term, your rate may not be 5.5% like it is today, or 6%. You know, it may be 9%, and it can really play havoc on your household budget.
Potentially very dangerous. Yeah, absolutely. I hate to even think about that. You know, when folks think about what you all went through, Tommy, how did you? And I think I saw in a good piece in the Coastal Carolina Business Journal back in 2001, 2002 that it talked about while you were at the Citizens Bank or after you'd left the Citizens Bank that you and Dalton Floyd began talking about some of the opportunities looking into forming Sun Bank. How did y'all go about, we got about 8 minutes, how did y'all go about that process?
Well, it's a pretty lengthy process, but Dalton Floyd and I had a discussion about the possibility of opening up a bank on the South Strand. At that point, the only bank down in the Merle's Inlet community was just a branch of Bank of America, and it was not open except for deposits. It was not loan production. So when Dalton and I started talking, he had a group of people, obviously, that he had worked with and known for years, and he made some calls, and we started having some organizers meetings, and I really have to give a lot of credit to Dalton in that he just knew the right folks. And before we knew it, you know, we had about 14 other people beside myself, and I talked to a few people that I knew. So we had a board full of folks ready to invest and take that initial risk. So the 15 of us started the bank.
I saw that, you know, seeing the pictures. I think you used to have some pictures laid out of all the bank members.
That's right.
Seeing them in alphabetical order with Coupe DeVille up there and yourself and Dalton Floyd. And then, of course, even down at the bottom there, Chad Prosser and his father and Larry Prosser and others. A very exciting group of folks that have long ties to the South Strand. It was very exciting. Not to name any particular ones, but in alphabetical order, there were a heck of a lot of folks there.
Absolutely. People that's well known in this community. And, you know, I just have to thank our board so much. You know, we went public to raise our stock and became a public company in the summer of 2000. And if you recall, that's when the tech wreck occurred. Right. That's when the market dropped, the bottom dropped at the market on tech stocks. So it was not a good time to get started. And then rates dropped, which really hurts a small bank because, you know, we're having to sell loans at a lower rate and gather deposits at a higher rate to start to get customers.
When you share that again real quick, Tommy, break that down for a viewer who tries to understand exactly how a bank works. You say when the rates go down,
I guess the most simple way I've ever been able to explain it is if you imagine deposits, whether it be CDs or checking accounts, as your inventory, all you're really doing is gathering those deposits. And you gather those deposits, some of them you pay almost nothing in interest for. Right. Some you pay higher rates, like on a CD. But it all comes together, and you got a pool of money that you can turn around and lend out. So your average cost for your funds might be, you know, 3 or 4%, and then hopefully you're going to lend that money out at 7% or 8 or 6. But you try to maintain maybe a 3 or 4% spread between what that money is costing you. Right. Because all you're really doing, I rent your money, and then I turn around and lend it to someone else at a little higher rate. And that small spread between what I'm paying for my deposits and what I'm loaning it out is the primary source of our revenue.
Tommy, that means banks are operating a real thin margins there.
You can't afford very many bad loans if you're in the banking business these days.
But not only that, how do y'all go about competing against, when we think of some of our Charlotte neighbors,
Right.
the Bank of America, Wachovia, or others, who are have the ability to borrow that money at much lower rate?
Customers one at a time. You know, we said from day one that we would build our bank one customer at a time, and that's what we did. We went out with one customer and developed a relationship and moved on to the next one and kept servicing that one that we had and never forgot about the first one.
Right. Yeah. Gave them your phone number and mobile number.
That's the only thing we have to sell. I mean, somebody can get a loan or make a deposit. You know, any other bank for about the same rate they can do with us. With us, it's total relationship.
You know, when you think about those relationships on the South Strand, I think I saw that you had been chairman of the board of the Georgetown County Chamber of Commerce, very active, and maybe even chaired the board of the Pawleys Island Rotary Club.
That's right.
You've remained very active in South Strand activities. You have to get out there, as well as other charitable groups. You have to get out there.
Absolutely. I mean, that's just part of what you do if you're going to be in the banking business. So.
You know, when you think about, I think I saw, Tommy, for a little while, you'd been with a larger bank and had the opportunity, whether it was with Wachovia, when they merged with South Carolina National. Yeah,
I was with South Carolina National initially, and we merged with Wachovia, and it was a wonderful experience, and Wachovia is a great bank. I'll always be very happy for the opportunities they gave me, but there's a niche, and I just like doing community banking better.
You know, having grown up on a small farm, how did you get into banking in the first place, Tommy?
It's a long story, but I kind of came through the back door. Started as an appraiser with a company called Farm Credit Services, and they lent money. They were not a bank, but from that it led to an opportunity to get into banking and just work my way through.
You know, when you go back into down into Georgetown County or into Williamsburg County, close to the home place, I mean, do you think about what I'd be doing now if I had stayed there in Williamsburg County?
Yeah, and I try not to think too much about that because it probably wouldn't be very good for my family and myself. It's very difficult, you know, if you don't have any assets and you really don't have much going on in a small community like that. The opportunities just aren't there like it is in larger areas. But it's a wonderful place to live, and it's full of great people. And obviously, if you know those folks, you enjoy it even more. So I certainly miss that area, but you know, you gotta make a good living.
Absolutely. Yeah. Tommy, what's the most exciting aspect as you think about this new merger with South Carolina Bank and Trust as y'all go forward, and of course getting ready for the planned finalizing of that in November? What's the most exciting aspect for you?
The growth. I mean, you know, we were growing very steadily and we were continuing to progress, and things were going very well for us. But with the capital and also the human resources that these folks have, we're going to be able to ramp that growth up drastically. So we're looking for a location in Myrtle Beach to build another hub office. You know, we have one in Georgetown, have one at Murrells Inlet, and then we'll have a very large office in Myrtle Beach. And then we'll start to build out around Myrtle Beach back towards you know, Murrells Inlet.
Sure.
And as those opportunities become available, but we'll be able to handle so many more, or so many larger clients that we haven't been able to service before. But at the same time, we certainly won't forget about smaller customers as well, because those are the folks that got us to where we are. And you know, whether we could borrow $5,000 or $5 million. We want your business, and we'll do everything we can to take care of it.
Yes, Tommy, and there's some great cost savings involved as well.
Sure.
In a potential merger.
I mean, one of the immediate things, for example, is we're paying a company now about $250,000 a year to do our data processing. We'll be able to move that function into the office in Columbia with SCB&T, and they can absorb that pretty much with the people they have. I mean, it's you know, they've got all the infrastructure in place, so there'll be tremendous savings, you know, at our company level by just that one impact.
And when you say data processing, you mean
the computer systems. For example, you know, the way if you come in and make a deposit, you know, kind of magically that will appear on our computer screen. Well, somebody has to do that. Somebody has to do all the data entry. Somebody has to keep those systems running, and we outsource that now. But we'll be able to do that through our home office in Columbia.
How exciting.
Yeah.
Tommy, congratulations. We're real excited for you.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Stay tuned to more Carolina People with Tommy Bouchette coming up next. The small town USA stuff isn't contrived. It's real business. It's business sense. You know, you heard Tommy talk about home phone numbers on the business cards. That's for real. Not only within the same area code, but within the same county. Oftentimes within that same mail code. You can track down these folks by giving them a call. It's not only Sunbank. There's lots of examples of community banks in our area, whether it's up in Scotland County and Robinson County and Darlington County or Dillon, or right here in Horry and Georgetown counties. These are real opportunities. You know, we should have talked to Tommy about whether he could write a book about it. I bet he could. He and Dalton teaming up back in '98, and the excitement of getting local folks involved to make local decisions. You saw some of those early ads of Sunbank, the true warmth of community banking, of local banking. You heard Dalton talk about the no 1-800 banking. It's not a joke. It's for real. These folks are available. Learn more about community banking at esunbank.com and learn more about the proposed merger and the excitement therein.